A house, a fire, and a quiet theft. Picture a cold winter evening. A family is gathered around the fireplace, warm, comfortable, cozy. The chimney is doing its job, pulling smoke up and out of the house. Seems perfect, right? But here's what nobody tells you. That chimney isn't just removing smoke every single minute. It is pulling out enormous amounts of heat your furnace or fireplace just worked hard to generate, and releasing it into the open sky. You paid for that heat. You burned fuel for it. And then, silently, invisibly, your chimney gave it all away for free. Pause here, let the irony land, then say, but what if that wasted heat could power your lights instead? A metal plate smaller than your palm. This is a TEG, a thermoelectric generator. It looks completely unremarkable, a small, flat metal plate, barely larger than a matchbox. You can buy one online for $15 to $30, but bolt it onto a hot chimney pipe and something remarkable happens. The difference in temperature between the hot side and the cool side generates a real, usable electric current, with zero fuel, zero moving parts, and zero noise. Not a lot of power, we'll get into the numbers soon, but enough to charge a phone, run sensors, power LED lights, or feed into a battery system, and it runs as long as your fire burns. Typical cost $15, $30 moving parts, zero fuel needed. None. The discovery that changed everything. 200 years ago, a German-Estonian physicist named Thomas Johann Seebeck was running what seemed like a simple experiment. He connected two different metals in a loop, bismuth and copper, and applied heat to one junction. His compass needle moved, without any battery, without any magnet, just heat, two metals, and electricity appearing from nothing. He called it thermomagnetism. We now call it the Seebeck Effect, and it is the foundation of every thermoelectric generator ever built. When you have two different conductive materials and a temperature difference between them, electrons flow. That flow is electricity. Seebeck didn't fully understand what he had found. He thought he was doing magnetism research. He had actually discovered a new way to generate electricity from heat alone. 1821. Thomas Johann Seebeck Effect, thermoelectricity, the technology powering spacecraft for 40-plus years. If you think this sounds too simple to be real, consider where NASA uses it. The Voyager probes, launched in 1977, are still operating today, over 14 billion miles from Earth. They are powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs. Essentially, the same Seebeck effect using radioactive decay as the heat source instead of fire. NASA's Mars rovers, Curiosity and Perseverance, use the same principle. No solar panels needed, no batteries that die in the Martian night, just heat converting to electricity, silently, for decades. Why? Because thermoelectric generators have no moving parts, nothing to break, nothing to wear out. They are the most reliable power source ever engineered by human hands. This is not a gadget from a late-night infomercial. It is the same technology trusted to keep a $2.5 billion spacecraft alive in deep space. Your home is already a power plant. It just doesn't know it. Here's the number that should bother you. American homes lose between 20% and 30% of all their heating energy straight up the chimney. Not because of bad insulation, not because of old windows, just through the flue, the exhaust pipe that every fireplace, furnace, and wood stove has to have. That is hundreds of dollars per household per winter, disappearing as hot air into the atmosphere. But now you know something different. That heat, the heat you already paid for, carries electrical potential. The chimney on your house is not a waste pipe. With the right device, it is a power source waiting to be tapped. Your home could be its own small power plant. And the fuel, it's already burning. Energy lost via chimney 20 to 30% annual heating cost. US AVG, $900 waste per year. $180, $270. The research that nobody wanted to fund. In 2019, researchers at MIT published a breakthrough. They had developed new thermoelectric materials achieving efficiency levels of 15 to 20%, a massive leap forward for the technology. The paper made waves in academic circles. Scientists were excited. Then nothing. No major government subsidies followed. No industry investment poured in. No fast-track grants, no public-private partnerships, no headlines in mainstream energy news. Compare that to solar. In the same period, solar panel manufacturers received billions in federal subsidies, tax incentives, and research grants. The technology was everywhere, on rooftops, in news stories, in politicians' speeches. Ask yourself, why would a 200-year-old proven technology, now dramatically more efficient, receive almost no institutional support, while a much younger technology gets everything? A number that explains everything. Let's do the math that the energy industry does not want you to do. There are roughly 142 million housing units in the United States. Chimneys, fireplaces, wood stoves, gas furnaces exist in tens of millions of them. Suppose just 50 million homes installed even the most basic thermoelectric setup, and suppose each one generates a conservative 50 watts. That is 2.5 gigawatts of electricity, generated for free from heat that was already being thrown away. For reference, a standard nuclear reactor produces about 1 gigawatt. So we are talking about the equivalent output of 2.5 nuclear power plants, produced by homeowners, off the grid, without any fuel cost, without any utility company involved. Now you understand why this technology makes certain people very nervous. Homes generating 50 WW, 50 million total output, 2.5 GW, equivalent to 2.5 nuclear reactors. Fuel cost, $0. Their business model requires your dependence. A utility company has one product, kilowatt hours. Every unit of electricity you generate yourself is a unit you don't buy from them. That's not a minor concern for their business. That is an existential threat to it. The industry even has a term for what you'd be doing, distributed generation. And internally, utility company strategy documents going back decades describe distributed generation as one of the primary risks to their long-term revenue model. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is basic corporate economics. When your customers can make the product themselves, you have a problem. And the response to that problem, historically, has been lobbying, regulation, and legislation designed to make self-generation as complicated and expensive as possible, the permit that protects no one except them. In Florida, lawmakers have pushed to require permits for small-scale personal generation setups, including devices that produce only a few watts and never connect to the grid at all, devices that power a single lamp, a phone charger, a sensor. The stated reason, safety. The actual effect, a paper trail, a fee, and a barrier that discourages ordinary people from experimenting. Then there is the story from Vermont. A woman mentioned in an online forum that she had set up a small thermoelectric generator connected to her wood stove, purely off-grid. No grid connection whatsoever. Within weeks, a representative from her local utility company contacted her. Not a government inspector. Her utility company. They knew, because they monitor. Because to them, every home that stops buying is a customer they are losing. The argument that sounds smart and isn't, the standard industry dismissal of thermoelectric generators, goes like this. They're only 5 to 8% efficient. Solar is 20%. Wind is better. It's just not worth it. And in a normal context, where you are comparing energy sources competing for the same fuel, that argument would be valid. But here's what they're leaving out. The fuel is already gone. The heat going up your chimney is waste. You already burned it. You already paid for it. It is leaving your house whether you capture it or not. Efficiency only matters when fuel has a cost. When the fuel is free, when it is heat that would otherwise disappear into the sky, then capturing even 5% of it is infinitely better than capturing 0%. A 5% efficient TEG on a chimney is not competing with solar panels. It is capturing something that would otherwise be lost forever. The efficiency argument is technically correct and practically meaningless, and the people making it know that. Industry argument: TEGs are only 5 to 8% efficient. Not worth it. The reality: waste heat costs $0. Even 5% of free electricity is free. Meet Paul Lapointe, retired engineer, Vermont. Small house, big wood stove, and a stubborn belief that a man should not need permission to generate his own electricity. Paul mounted 6 thermoelectric modules directly onto his wood stove's flue pipe, bolted flat against the hot metal with aluminum heat sinks on the cold side to maintain the temperature difference. He wired them through a charge controller to a small battery bank in his basement. The result: 47 watts, continuous for as long as the stove burned. Not glamorous, not 47 kilowatts, but 47 steady, reliable, off-grid watts that belonged entirely to him. Then came the ice storm of 2023, 3 days. The entire county went dark, power lines down, repair crews overwhelmed, neighbors waiting in the cold with dead phones and no internet. Paul's house had lights. Paul had the internet. Paul made coffee. His total investment under $200. His payoff: resilience that money in the utility grid simply cannot buy. TEG modules use 6 units continuous output, 47W total build cost, $200 grid outage survived 3 days. This isn't American, it's human. Paul's story is compelling, but here's what makes it extraordinary. Versions of it are happening everywhere. Nepal, remote villages. Families are attaching TEG modules to their traditional cooking stoves, the same fires they cook dinner on. The heat that was always there now charges phones that connect them to schools, markets, and emergency services. Australia, the outback. Station owners hundreds of kilometers from the nearest power line are using wood-fired boilers combined with thermoelectric arrays to run communications equipment and water pumps. No grid, no generator fuel to haul in, just fire and physics. Rural India, NGOs have deployed cooking stove TEG kits that generate enough power for an LED lamp and a phone charger, transforming evening hours from darkness into study time for children. Northern Canada. Off-grid homesteaders use wood boiler systems with TEG panels as their primary winter charging solution, reliable where solar fails due to polar night. This technology does not require an advanced economy. It requires a fire and a temperature difference. That is why it spreads to exactly the places that need it most, and exactly the places that utility companies do not reach. The blueprint: 3 components, 1 system. You do not need an engineering degree. You need 3 things: the core, thermoelectric module, TEG 12611 6.0. This is the heart of the system. Mount it against your chimney pipe or stove body using high-temperature thermal paste for good contact. One face must be hot, the other must stay cool. That difference is your power source. Start with 1 or 2 modules to test your setup before scaling up. The cooling, aluminum heat sinks, and a small fan. The cold side of your module must stay cold. Bolt aluminum heat sinks to it. For passive cooling in a well-ventilated space, this may be enough. For maximum output, add a small 12V computer fan. The fan can even be powered by the TEG itself once it's running, a self-sustaining loop. The management, solar charge controller and battery bank. A standard PWM solar charge controller, designed for 12V systems, works perfectly with TEG output. Wire your modules in series or parallel to match your target voltage, run the output through the controller, and charge a 12V lead-acid or LiFePO4 battery bank. From there, a USB converter or inverter powers whatever you need. TEG 12611 6.0 thermal paste aluminum heat. Sync PWM Charge Controller 12V Battery Bank, the math that ends the argument. Let's talk about what this actually costs and what it actually returns. A basic starter setup. 2 TEG modules, heat sinks, a charge controller and a small battery runs between $60 and $120. A more capable system with 6 modules and a larger battery bank sits in the $150 to $200 range. That is your total hardware cost, purchased once. The modules themselves are rated for 15 years of continuous operation under normal conditions. Replacement modules cost $15 each. There is nothing else to maintain. The return, free electricity every time your stove or furnace runs. Over a 15-year lifespan, even a modest system running 4 months per year will return its investment many times over, while giving you power that